This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
Hi, I'm Bob Pittman, Chairman and CEO of iHeartMedia. On this week's episode of Math and Magic, I'm sitting down with the one and only Bobby Bones. We're exploring the power of audio.
Yeah, I don't fit into one specific hole. I think that is what endeared me to listeners. That's why I'm here now, because I talk to people that grew up like me, have sensibilities like me, and have loyalties like me.
Listen to Math and Magic, stories from the frontiers of marketing on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast.
A fan.
People have said that they believe that when Superfan guy caught the ball that was thrown, obviously towards the direction, well, to center court basically, but the direction of the Oklahoma City basket by Gilgeous-Alexander, right? That there was actually there was 0.6 of a second left on the scoreboard. It originally read 0.1.
Yes.
Then there was an argument, or it seemed like there was discussion, negotiating that went on. Then I felt like the refs went over to the table. So was 0.3 like a compromise? Or
I'm not sure how that worked.
Do we know how they settled at 0.3? If in fact that's accurate, I didn't watch it because I was there in terms of when the fan had it, and allegedly that makes it a dead play at that point when it touches something out of bounds, I assume.
Yes.
Then why wouldn't it have been? Because obviously 0.6, you have a shot to take a shot as opposed to just a tip-in. So I don't know if we got a ruling on that.
One of the nice things about this series, I think, especially the last couple of games, has been the relative lack of replays. I know we had a couple yesterday, but I don't think either team has ever used more than one in the last couple of games. There's been a good flow, it seems like. Obviously, Game 3, it was all flowing because the Wolves crushed them. But I was surprised they didn't micromanage that a little bit more to make sure exactly how much time.
Yeah.
Because you're right, it was 0.1, and you sat there and said, well, they have to at least look at it to figure out when the ball hit out of bounds, whether the fan caught it or not. You got to figure out exactly when it went out. There's time on the clock. You got to figure out, you do have to get that part right. It didn't seem to me that they ever went over to look at the monitor and do it themselves. So I don't know if scores table crew had that locked in for them, because it was pretty quick that they went to 0.3, but I don't understand how they came to that number without actually looking at it.
Yeah, it's obviously a pretty significant play.
It's huge.
It's the end of the game. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe we might get, maybe Double T has some opinions on that. As I said, he's the reason that that couldn't be turned into a shot.
A jump shot.
Right? Because Double T hit one at, 0.3.
Yes.
And they said,
it was a catch and shoot.
Not going to work. That's not possible. So we're going to make sure that's the Double T. That's where he's in the history books.
It's true.
The last time somebody hit a miracle shot with 0.3 of a second to go was Double T, Trent Tucker.
And this is for the kids before the time when you had 52 angles on every play, and you could frame by frame figure out exactly. Like we just saw this with the Aaron Gordon dunk at the buzzer, the Lorenzo Charles one in the Clippers series. You couldn't do that back in Trent's day to figure out exactly when the shot went off. Did the backboard go red?
Yeah.
So they had to just arbitrarily come up with, 0.3, you can't, it might have even been less, but you can't catch and shoot when you have that little time.
And now, it's time for Ode to a Dead Guy.
Hard to believe, but it's been a whole 1 year since we lost Bill Walton. Bill Walton passed away today in 2024, May 27, the same day, by the way, that another bumper-to-bumper guest, not a regular, but a guest, by the name of Greg Allman, passed away in 2017. We lost Greg Allman. In 2017, we lost Bill Walton last year. And, NBA is returning to NBC next year, correct?
Yeah.
And it is interesting when you get to those like NBA cobwebs Twitter handles where they'll have some old games up there and fights and big plays and last shots and emotional moments. And then you hear Bill Walton on color analysis back in the day, right? Long time ago, where he was front and center, was he not?
Yes, in the finals.
Correct.
Big time.
Was he with Steve Snapper Jones?
Yeah.
It was a threesome, correct?
I think so.
I think they were both in a lot of those, yeah. So hard for me to believe. And by the way, a tweeter reminded me that I have to take a look at it, that Bill Walton auction of a bunch of Bill Walton memorabilia, officially sanctioned, is ongoing. I think it goes into, I want to say, early June.
It does. That's what I remember.
First week in June is what I recall.
Yep.
But yeah, hard to believe, right? It doesn't feel like it's been that long, does it? It's been a year already.
It is crazy.
On Bill Walton.
Yeah.
The big redhead. And
well, we felt it at the Final Four this year. At least I did. He wasn't at the Final Four a year ago when we were in Arizona. And at the time, I don't think it was necessarily health related. He wasn't there that time. And, but yeah, that day when, the Friday when he was coming, everybody on Radio Row knew it because it was going to be a force of energy and a force of nature. And it definitely was weird not having him there.
Oh, where's my sounder? Are they off? Oh, there we go.
Bada bing, bada boom.
That's Greg Allman on the Bumper to Bumper show. Bada bing, bada boom. Who else has that? Who else has Greg Allman doing a bada bing, bada boom, listening to us? And we had another one of his. Put it all in the hopper.
Oh yeah.
Do we still have that one on maybe a different page? That was on Dan A. It's another good one.
I don't think we put that one on the new page. We didn't save that one?
Put it all in the hopper. You got it. I think I was talking about the ensemble nature of the Allman Brothers, different musical. Well, they actually had similar sensibilities, but they, everybody kind of brought something different, including, of course, his brother Dwayne is the guitarist extraordinaire. And that was, the other one. Put it all in the hopper. You got it. Just by coincidence. What did I say? 7 years apart, because Bill Walton passed away a year ago today, and Greg Allman in 2017 as well. We'll double check this, but somebody's texting that double T catch and shoot was at 0.1.
That might be right.
And that might be right.
Yeah.
That might be a good correction. And then the NBA, they went through a bunch of studies saying, we got to eliminate this, and it can't be 0.1. It can't be 0.2. And 0.3 won't work unless the only way we'll accept that will be on a tip in. So it has to be, for it to be a shot, then technically it's got to be 0.4.
I guess so.
Or greater.
And even then, now they'll definitely freeze frame it to make sure that you got the shot off.
Yeah. Very, very true, Davey. 100%.
I didn't watch the Ant free throw back. I know the ball ended up in Shea's hands. Does anybody know, was anybody ever close to it? Was any Timberwolf ever close to it? Because the ball hit the ground, if I remember right, which is not good for OKC.
No, that's true.
Because that's a scramble, and you never know who's going to come in and grab it and then just throw it up there.
Well, somebody said they would have told Ant to keep making the free throw, but you're at 3.5 seconds.
3.5
right?
is dicey.
At that point, I think you almost have to do it. And to be honest,
I think you're out of timeouts, too. That has to be factored in.
You are out of timeouts. That's also true. To be honest, like I said, I kind of understand coaches who don't want to do it because of the fear that, because I thought we might even try it the previous one. That
right.
They may say, all right,
with
6.5. 6.5. Let's just do it now. And if we have to do it a second time, we will, but maybe have a better chance to get the rebound one of the two times, statistically. Because that, to me, would be my hesitation if I'm the team with the lead, if I'm the coach. All I need is for some goofy thing to happen, gets tipped out, and they get a three. They turn it into a 4-point play, and suddenly we're behind.
Right.
Not only is it's not tied, we're down by 1 point with no timeouts left. So I get the hesitation, but that seemed to be the OKC policy, don't you think?
And why it worked, unlike the Knicks the other night, there were 6.5 seconds left. Like, that's the time to do it. 10 seconds and under. You don't do it when there's 12 or 13.
No. Yes, exactly.
Because the game, even as it was, the Wolves got 2 cracks at it.
That's true.
And the ball hit the ground. Like, obviously the percentages were low, but when you do it with 12, you're not only you're putting continued pressure on your guys, because part of it is you have to make your free throws, and Shea missed one. which opened the door to the whole thing, right? If Shea just makes both free throws that last time he's up there, or the second to last time that he's up there, then three's never even in the equation.
Correct.
It's always going to be 4. When you do it with 12 or 13 seconds left like the Knicks did, that gives them, they had to hit more free throws because of that, and that's why they ended up, they should have lost at the buzzer if not
Correct.
for a toe, but they ended up losing in overtime.
This is from Matt in Shoreview. Rockets in 2015, Cavs in NBA Finals in 2016, Nuggets in 2020. It's possible to come back down 3-1, and the 2025 Wolves can do it against a Thunder team they beat by 42 points 2 games ago, as Ricky Rubio and Ted Lasso would say.
Believe.
That being said, I think we lose in 6. That's Matt.
Well, that'd be something.
From Shoreview. How much of a gut punch would that be?
That'd be tough. You know what, though?
But that's the way sports often works.
At this point, I'll take that. Bring it back to mini.
One more game at home?
Why not?
Yeah. More free throw merchant chance for you? Just one more time to get it, for people to get.
Hi, I'm Bob Pittman, Chairman and CEO of iHeartMedia. On this week's episode of Math and Magic, I'm sitting down with the one and only Bobby Bones. We're exploring the power of audio.
The word on the street then was he's too country for pop. But then once I got to country, it was he's too pop for country. So I kind of never really had a place to fit in, but that's exactly how and why I fit. I just embraced that. Like, yeah, I don't fit into one specific hole. I think that is what endeared me to listeners. That's why I'm here now, because I talk to people that grew up like me, have sensibilities like me, and have loyalties like me.
Listen to Math and Magic, stories from the frontiers of marketing on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Get out of there. When do we have a schedule yet on the Frost Parade? All the Frost does, literally, is win championships, right? 2 years in the league, and they win again in overtime in game number 4 to eliminate Ottawa, and they keep the trophy, right?
Yeah.
For the second
the
consecutive year. All 4 games were 2-1.
Yeah.
And all 4 games went into overtime, correct?
Was it overtime yesterday?
Thought it was overtime. Yeah, if I'm not crazy. Well, I am crazy, but I'll double check it, but I believe that is the case. That was over. Now, it wasn't as lengthy in overtime as the previous ones. This comes, the game winner was 12 minutes of overtime to win the second championship.
Wow.
One of our own, Mound, Minnesota. Liz Sheppers was hit the game winner right in front of the net, 12 minutes of overtime to win a second consecutive. So basically, I mean, no one else in the history of this league has won a title.
They have not.
Just us.
Just us. State of hockey.
Quite a legacy.
State of hockey. Your original question, do we have details on the celebration? We do. It's tomorrow night, 6 o'clock at the X. 6 to 8 p.m. at the X. Live DJ, interactive games, photos with the Walter Cup. As the Frost said on Twitter, come celebrate the repeat with us. Tomorrow night at the X.
Crowd, I think, listed at like 11,000 and change, 11,024 fans. Good crowd for at the X. They announced it. Was the game going on while we were still on the air? Did it wrap up, or was it actually during the Wolves game that they wrapped up?
They announced it in the arena at Target Center during the game.
But I don't know how, had it just ended at that point?
Yes.
Oh, it had. Okay,
pretty close. Yeah, it started at 4 o'clock yesterday.
Gotcha.
When we last left, I think they were up 1-0 at the end of the second period, I want to say. When we last checked it.
That's right.
From the cage.
Right, we did check that. That's true.
And then Ottawa tied it in the third, and then obviously the Frost win and won in an OT.
I think the game 3 victory was the triple overtime game. That was the Saturday game, correct?
Which my son and dad were watching on their phone at game 3 of Wolves Thunder. While I was howling with the homies at 6:30, they were out in the Skyway just watching the game. And then they kept it on. We were watching the first half. We were watching both. That was crazy.
For the record, Sheppers also had the game winner in last year's PWHL finals, it was a 3-0 victory, but she scored what was the first goal, which technically speaking then becomes the game-winning goal. That was in the clinching Game 5 in Boston, Massachusetts. So there you have it. Somebody's winning.
Yeah.
Somebody is
That's how it works.
Is dominating, and so that part is all good. Apparently, and there wasn't much controversy about this, the Ottawa goaltender Gwyneth Phillips was named the playoffs MVP. A 1.23 goals against average, a .952 save percentage, and 4 postseason wins and 8 starts. And not even the Frost were belly aching about it. Head coach Ken Klee, she was unreal. 3 of our 4 games, if she doesn't play the way she played, I don't think we go to overtime in any of them. We outchanced them 2-1. We put everything on her that we could. She was phenomenal. That doesn't happen very often, right? In any sport,
Very
really,
rarely.
where a player from the losing team gets rewarded with that sort of honor. Correct? I don't think it's unprecedented, but it doesn't happen very often. So I wonder if Louis was there.
I bet he was at the cabin yesterday.
That's probably true.
That would be my guess.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. Maybe I might have watched it.
I'm sure he probably
I wonder, did anybody do that? Well, so what time would that game have ended?
Probably
Started at
7:15.
So you'd be cutting it really close. I mean, you could, in theory,
Yes.
go to both games. It might be a little late for the Wolves, but you could, you could in theory end up enjoying both games. Although obviously the Wolves game was not going to end up as enjoyable in terms of the final score.
Well, Saturday you could have done Twins game at 1, train to St. Paul, Frost
True.
game at 4,
Yeah.
train back for Wolves Thunder game 3. You could have had a hell of a Saturday. And you would have packed so much in, Dan, you would have thought you were in Indianapolis because of all the activities that were going on. The
Close.
Twins game,
Not
the
quite.
Frost game, and then the Wolves game.
Not quite the same, but pretty. There is nothing like. In fact, speaking again to the Indianapolis's versatility and brilliance, did you see who was broadcasting outside Conseco Fieldhouse, or what once was called that, in preparation for Game 4 in that series tonight?
Well, it had to be TNT, right?
No. Well, they probably are, but it's not them.
Oh.
In addition,
Pat McAfee?
McAfee.
Yeah, well, he's a Colt, and he lives there.
But the logistics of setting up a studio, an outdoor studio, and making everything work, you think that comes together in other cities the same way?
Okay, so
Hell, we can't even stay on the air when we're at the cage,
that's
for God's
true.
sake.
I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, that was weird.
At this point, let me know what you think about this. I'm kind of hoping, there was a, with Michael Grady, the star shooting so high, right? He's about to
leave us, yeah.
Well, but I don't necessarily think so. I think he does. I think the way he phrased it with you a couple of weeks ago when he said, if my attention is divided in the future, I think he's going to try to work out like an Ian Eagle, one of his guys, or Mike Breen deal, where those guys do Knicks and Nets, and then they do a national schedule.
Yeah.
So
he's going to have to miss some more games, though.
Of course.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
He can't do every game, but that's
not going to be the same.
People think that he's just gone, but here's what I'm saying. Because of our interaction yesterday, I'm kind of hoping he leaves forever because I could tell he was so embarrassed for me at my disdain for Indianapolis and why I was because we were joking about it on the air, but when I'm explaining it to him and he just goes, "It seems like you're wrong you're mad at the wrong people." Like, you don't get it, Mike.
Yeah.
Like, you don't get it. Like, they pay for everything, and it's not that big a deal. He just kind of looked at me like, what's wrong with you?
In effect, he Chuck Daly'd you.
He really did.
He Daly'd you.
Yeah.
That's what he did. It's
it seems like you're mad at the wrong people.
Yeah.
Grow up,
he did
basically.
It with that, like you said, that rich voice of his, very subtly.
Yes.
He wasn't yelling.
No.
He wasn't screaming. He was just, yeah.
And I feel like I'm older than him. We're about the same age, but I think I felt ashamed at that moment.
Yeah.
That Michael Grady, you could tell Michael Grady was judging me.
Good questions being asked by several of the texters here. In keeping with Frost tradition, are we going to be forced to fire our general manager again?
I was trying to figure out how to get a Darwin's cheap shot in there, and I just didn't know, is it the right time? Should I do it? But I'm glad our audience picked us up. That's why we're a team.
That's it.
That's why the audience is part of this journey.
Creative tension apparently works for the Frost.
Yeah.
They just make changes, doesn't matter.
Who will be the fall person for this championship
So now,
run?
I think it's Michelle Caruso, correct? That's the current GM?
I think that sounds right.
So is she on the hot seat or anything? Or
better check her key
or will
card.
she just, out of the, decency resign to keep the tradition going? And then we bring who knows who we bring in next?
Who will they hold accountable for this championship run? That's what we need to find out.
That was a hell of a story a year ago, wasn't it?
It still is. And we still
remarkable.
don't have the answers.
No, we don't. I don't know that we ever.
We won't.
That's because the Jackals, I don't think the Jackals have gone after it hard. They need to go after that story a little harder, especially now, I would say. Now, just because it's a year ago, to me now it's even more interesting with winning another title in the new year. Let's pause for Double T. Trent Tucker, a hockey guy, by the way. We'll see what he has to say about the Minnesota Frost, and we'll talk plenty of Wolves basketball. Game number 4. Is the series, in Double T's opinion, now?
Hi, I'm Bob Pittman, Chairman and CEO of iHeartMedia. On this week's episode of Math and Magic, I'm sitting down with the one and only Bobby Bones. We're exploring the power of audio.
The word on the street then was he's too country for pop. But then once I got to country, it was he's too pop for country. So I kind of never really had a place to fit in, but that's exactly how and why I fit. I just embraced that. Like, I don't fit into one specific hole. I think that is what endeared me to listeners. That's why I'm here now, because I talk to people that grew up like me, have sensibilities like me, and have loyalties like me.
Listen to Math and Magic, stories from the frontiers of marketing on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Over. Stay tuned. Questions for the professor of hoopology, Trent Tucker. Hit the Bradshaw and Bryan KFAN text line at 64686. Trent joins us via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline. You want to talk Wolves or do you want to talk Frost? All the Minnesota Frost does, Double T, is win world championships. They've been in the league 2 years. The league's existed for 2 years, and they got the trophies both years.
Well, they call it the state of hockey, right?
Yes, they do. Don't remind me. Now you sound like Kevin Fallness. I made the mistake the other day, Double T. This was when the Lynx, were starting a season in which the other general managers picked them to win the title this year. They've obviously had good pedigree, made it to that final game a year ago. The Wolves were reaching the conference finals for the second straight year to declare this the state of basketball. And that did not go over well with the hockey community.
Well, basketball is not too far behind, because when you look at, how many young players, especially from the high school ranks, are going Division I.
Yep.
And on most nights you see a ton of Division I college scouts and coaches coming to watch, the rich talent that we have in our state now. So, basketball is not too far behind the state of hockey.
No, it's and part of it is my tweaking. The Wild have not gotten out of the first round in like 10 years, so that's I think part of maybe the frustration in the state of hockey, or certainly should be. Why, if you're prioritizing your list for reasons why the Wolves were unable to win Game 4 last night at Target Center, what's at the top of the Trent Tucker list?
They approached defensively to start the game. When you give up close to 60-plus points in the first half, that's just too many points to give up. That tells me right there that you were not locked in mentally on the defensive end. You came out with a regular season attitude, paying attention to detail on defense, and that's why you gave up 126. Was 126 points you gave up last night?
Yeah.
Of that nature.
In that range.
If you score 124 points on your home floor, you're supposed to win by 20 points.
Yeah, that's the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah, you're supposed to win. You're supposed to win that game going away. And I just thought that from a defensive standpoint, coming out, the Wolves did not have the right mindset set to win that basketball game on the defensive end.
The final score is 128-126. Wolves losing
128
by 2, so they gave up 128. To your point, is the series over?
It's when you look at where they are as it's going to be a major haul for them to overcome this deficit. But by looking at it from an athlete standpoint, no, you never say it's over, because you know that you have beaten this team before on their home floor throughout the regular season. And now as a head coach, you have to go back, to that film and say, okay, what did we do differently to beat this team on the road? And see if we can come up with a game plan that can put us in a good position to win once again.
Julius Randle had a dreadful game. I think he had 5 turnovers. I believe Edwards, I think between the two of them, they had 6 made baskets and 10 turnovers, which obviously is not going to get it done. There's always the question of what a coach should do. In this circumstance, should he consider a change to the starting lineup? Is that too dramatic a move on Julius, given how well he had played the first 2 rounds of the playoffs? Really, the story of the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, one could say, and even in the Wolves' victory, he played well, but he's had a couple of bad stretches. What do you do with Julius Randle at this point if you're Finchy?
Well, I would go back and look at games 1, and then look at, you're talking about game number 3. Game number 1, he was very good. He just didn't get enough shots in the second half because the offense went away from him.
Yeah.
Game three, he was fantastic. So I felt like last night that he was not involved in the offense early. And at this stage of the year, you have to make sure that the offense starts with your best 2 players being on the attack. And for him not to be in the game early, it bothered him. He went away, and all the other little things that he had been doing so well for the team, he lost sight of that. And he wasn't playing defense. He wasn't engaged into the game. But when you have a guy who sometimes can, if he's not involved early, he can float away. You have to make sure the head coach that he's involved right from the start.
Give me your sense of why. Of course, their big 2 outscored the Wolves' big 2 74-21, which is astonishing. Now, the Wolves still, were in it in large measure because they had some bench players that played as well as they did. But when you're watching game number 4, what strikes you about, because to me it looks as if their big 2 had in their structure, in their flow, easier opportunities, that it wasn't always all that challenging for them to get back to the places they like to get to. And I feel like with the Wolves and their big 2, everything seemed painful. Everything seemed laborious and seemed difficult, especially with Anthony Edwards. How do we explain that discrepancy?
Oklahoma City came out with an idea on how they were going to defend Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards. The Wolves came out without an idea on how they was going to guard Williams and SGA, because there was too many times that Jalen Williams got the ball and went to his right hand and made a play.
Yeah.
Okay, so at some point in time, you know that he's right-handed dominant. If he has it going to his right, when are we going to change up and send him to the left side? When are we going to make him do something different, take him out of his comfort zone? So that's why I say that when it came to defense last night, the Wolves were not prepared to take on the Oklahoma City Thunder the right way.
That's disappointing to me because, the game 3 was such, I thought, a declaration of we're not done. This series isn't over. We're going to show you a little bit of what we think we can do against the odds-on favorite to win the thing. And to me, that should inspire you further to come out in game 4 on fire, especially, Trent, as you know, knowing human nature being what it is, Oklahoma City obviously was going to come on strong early and play with force.
Well, and when you talk about, Julius Randle, because they knew that if we could get him to operate a little bit farther away from his comfort zone, he would need to take 2, 3, or 4 more dribbles to make an offensive play.
Good point.
And now we can put him in a position where he has to turn the ball over.
Yep.
So they came out with attention to detail on how they were going to defend these 2 guys. But on the other end, and SGA is a smooth offensive basketball player. To me, he's fun to watch, but you didn't make it hard for him. He was able to get to his spots. He was able to catch the ball exactly where he wanted the ball at. And now all of a sudden, as a defender, you're at his mercy because he's playing off of 1 or 2 bounces. And when a great offensive player can play off 1 or 2 bounces, he becomes even more dangerous to control.
What makes him so effective? And is there anybody from your era when you were playing that is, sort of a style, match? What do you see and what impresses you about Shea?
He's always under control, and he knows how to get to his spots on the floor to get his shots off. And he knows exactly where he needs to go and how many dribbles he needs to take. He uses his body well to create space. I mean, he's just if you're an old school basketball player, I mean, you enjoy watching him play. Lou Hudson was a guy who was like that.
Sweet Lou Hudson,
yeah. Bernard King was the guy that when he got to his spots on the floor, I mean, 1 or 2 bounces and the ball was up and in the basket. But in today's game, when you talk about, let's say, the top 3 or 4 players, Jokic, Luka Doncic, SGA, they all play very similar. They take their time. They know where they need to get to make their offense work. They use 1 or 2 bounces to make it happen. And when you have guys who are so efficient from that standpoint, they force your double team now to break down. They force you to bring that extra guy, and that's going to free up his teammates for some easier shots. But he's just a very efficient basketball player, and to me, he's fun to watch. The
cliche is, and you named them, players who seemingly can't get sped up. They are always, they're not frantic offensively. Now, again, the Wolves did, I think, a good job on him, made him look relatively mortal in Game 3, but that's, to me, the similarity, even though, obviously, Jokic is a different kind of a player, but to me, that's the similarity, is it not? Is that some of the best offensive players are ones that you can't, no matter what you do, you can't speed them up. They're going to go at their speed.
Yeah, they play at their tempo. They play at their rhythm because they understand how the offense is supposed to work. And the head coach will always put them in position where they can be at their best. And when you have a guy like SGA, I mean, he can beat you in so many ways. He's not a big-time three-point shooter.
No.
He can make a 3 here or there, but he lives at the free throw line. And to be a 25 to 30-point scorer, you have to get to the free throw line early and often, and he's able to do that night in and night out.
Okay, let's get to your view on that part of his game, because I've been in the minority, I would say, in this town about being quite critical of what I view as an obsession over the free throw merchant stuff. I'm not here to say that he doesn't attract some calls that perhaps he doesn't quite deserve, but I remember a day, Double T, when a player's ability to get to the free throw line, no matter how they did it, as often as he does, was considered a strength. It was considered a great attribute because there is an art to create, like you say, creating in many cases the contact that leaves the ref with very little choice, but to make the call, or he can stop on a dime and he knows with certain movement the defender is going to go into him. So where are you on the free throw merchant stuff, whether he gets away with murder, whether it's a skill? What do you think?
He's very crafty, and he knows how to get his defender out of position just enough, to create the body contact. He knows how to get you on his hip. He uses his time and his spacing very well, to create the contact and get to the free throw line. And he understands that for him to be the point producer for his basketball team, getting field goals would not be enough. He has to get to the free throw line as well. And as I said, Dan, from an old school standpoint, I mean, he's fun to watch on the offensive end.
Not always spectacular in the Anthony Edwards way, but smooth, as you said, and efficient and fundamentally sound.
Yeah, to me, he is he's a work of art. I mean, he's so skilled with his offensive game, and it's just pretty to see because he gets to those spots. He uses his footwork. He knows how to spin away from his defender. He can shoot the fall away. He can shoot the 1-2 bounce pull up. He can get to the rim off of 1-2 bounces, and then every now and then he can step back and knock down a 3-point shot. When a guy brings all of that to the table offensively, well, he's a nightmare to deal with.
A couple good texts have come in. We're chatting, of course, with Trent Tucker. How does Dort get over our screens, and yet we can't get over OKC's screens?
Because we're not setting screens. It looks like that we're setting screens. We go to set a screen, but we're really not making that contact. And sometimes the big players are not able to screen the guard if he comes and moves too fast. You have to let the big guy get there first so that he can get his feet planted, and now you come off the screen. If both of you guys are moving at the same time, either one or two things are going to happen to the screener, the guy who's setting the screen. He's not going to set the screen, or he's going to pick up an offensive foul.
Yeah.
So that's where you have to have patience. You have to take your time and make sure you allow the screener to get into a position where he can set the screen to free you up.
It's a great point. So that's often as much on the ball, the guy with the ball, as the screener, correct? Timing of it.
Right. You take Karl Malone. I take Karl Malone and John Stockton.
Mm-hmm.
And John Stockton always ran the side pick and roll, and he got below the free throw line. But Karl Malone never came to set the pick until John Stockton called him over. Because John Stockton wanted to make sure that he got Karl Malone in a position where now when he came off that pick and roll, based on what the defense were going to do at that time, he had a play to get Karl Malone open. So it's all about the timing between the guy with the basketball and the person who's setting the screen. You guys have to be on the same timetable.
Anthony Edwards, I believe, had either 2 or 3 shots in the first half, which I find unacceptable. There's a lot of talk about second half he made the right basketball play. I'm not here to disagree with that on a number of occasions because it led to baskets. But Double T, to me, there's got to be a problem either with one aspect of his play or his mind, his mental approach at that point, or there's got to be some adjustments to the system if it's that difficult to get your obviously your number one player, your number one option started in a game that you have to win.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Now, if as a coach, if the system is not, like you just mentioned, not putting him in the right position to get the shots, well, then I have to make some adjustments. But if we have designed, a system where he can get shots and he's not being aggressive, I got to call a timeout. And he and I got to have a conversation because I got to find out what's wrong with you, because there is no way, as well as your teammates are playing tonight and they are keeping you in the game, for you to only take 1 or 2 shots in the first half, I'm with you, Dan. That's unacceptable. Yeah,
it just doesn't add up. It just does not work for me. Double T, Trent Tucker, go ahead. I'm sorry. You're going to say? Add?
Not if you're not sick, if you're not injured,
right.
You got to tell me something, man, because right now we're trying to win.
Yeah.
And I need for you, if you are missing shots, I can live with that.
Exactly.
If you 5 for 45, I don't want to see that, but I can live with that. But I can't have you 1 for 2. That right there, Dan, I'm with you. That's unacceptable.
Where does the mid-range come into this? Because obviously that's part of Oklahoma City's bread and butter, and certainly Shea's bread and butter is they in a league that's kind of 3-point happy, and they take their share, but it's not. They live to a large degree, more than most teams, in the mid-range. And I still like to think there has to be a component of that in Edwards' game that becomes a bigger part of what he does. And there are stretches where I feel like he's getting better in that regard, and then other times where not the case. Now, maybe you'll tell me the defense and the 2 big men that OKC tends to play makes it hard to get to that mid-range, but where does that come into Edwards taking the next step here, and would that have any impact on this series?
Well, if you look at the 3 losses, the Wolves' offense is starting too far away from the basket. You look at their 1 win, when Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle were very consistent in what they were doing, they were below the free throw line.
Good point, yeah.
And now you can make your offense happen off of 1 or 2 bounces. Oklahoma City is very good when they can extend their defense and push you out to 25 to 26 feet to start your offense. That means now, Dan, you have to take multiple dribbles just to get into a position to try to score. And when you turn your back once or twice, that's when that weak side defender comes over to force a turnover. And I think that when you run an offense and you know that a certain team can take certain things away, now where do I locate my players in different positions on the floor? Do I move him off the ball? Do I post him up? Do I run him off some screens to free him up to get some good looks? You have to do different things throughout the game to make sure that your best offensive players are in a good situation to attack the defense. And in game number 3, Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards, they started the game running their offense below the free throw line.
Great. That's also an outstanding observation. Give me your opinion and your analysis a little bit on the local kid, on Holmgren, who I thought had an outstanding game in game number 4 yesterday. What do you think he's going to end up being when he grows up?
He is fantastic. If he can stay healthy, Dan, I first saw him when he was in high school as a 10th grader. And I was doing high school basketball for Channel 45. Mm-hmm. And I saw this tall, real thin kid come out to play. And I was like, well, who is this? And I saw North High School pressing and trapping Minnehaha High Academy. And he was breaking the press by himself. I was like, but wait a minute. I've never seen anything like this before. And what he has become and what he can be down the road is the sky's the limit. If he can stay healthy, he is going to be truly one of the all-time good players to ever play this game. Yeah,
he played a major role, I think, in game number 4. He looked good on both sides of the ball. Real quick, Knicks and Pacers, game number 4 tonight. Knicks stole game 3 on the road. They need to do it again to do what the Wolves were not able to do. What are you expecting in that series? Do you think the Knicks have a really good chance to actually come back and win this series, or is it still the Pacers series, you think?
Well, I think the Knicks have a chance to get themselves back into this series because, Jalen Brunson had an off game in game 3, and the Knicks still found a way to win. I don't expect him to have an off game tonight. And Indiana, just like the Knicks did in game number 1, they fell asleep in the latter part of the second half, being up big and thought the game was over. And we all know with the beauty of the three-point shot, most teams are never out of it.
Yeah, very true. And we saw Cat, obviously, with Brunson on the bench, actually get the ball in the fourth quarter, which doesn't always happen. It's a funny thing. I don't know if you and I have talked about this on air, but it's hard to argue with Brunson, having the ball most of the fourth quarter down the stretch because he's a terrific – talk about a guy who can create space and get shots off despite extra, defensive work to get him out of his hands. But I still feel like there are stretches where Towns is like a rumor because it's just Brunson going one-on-one. And to me, it looked to me like this last game with Brunson in foul trouble, Towns said, okay, here's my opening. And he wasn't going to give up the ball, I don't think, the entire quarter, and he ends up with 20 points.
Well, it seems like, more guys get involved because the ball is now moving from side to side. You get player movement and ball movement at the same time. When Brunson is in the game, and he's been perhaps the best clutch player all season long, he's not selfish. He just believes that he's the guy that has to get it done for the Knicks. And I think going forward over the next few years, once he figures out that he doesn't have to try to do it all by himself, he has another guy in Karl Anthony Towns, that can play a major part as well. That's going to put the Knicks, I believe, closer to having a chance to win the championship at some point in time.
Last item, game 5, obviously, in the Wolves series will be tomorrow night right here on the Fan. So, again, if you're prioritizing, what's at the top of the list that is fundamental and an absolute requirement if the Wolves are going to give themselves a decent chance to actually steal the game?
They got to come out strong on the defensive end. They have got to make it hard for Oklahoma City to run their offense. And then we all know that the only way you finish up, your defense is by securing the rebound. You have to keep them to one shot as much as you can. You can't give them second and third chances. And all the things that, you guys been talking about all day is that you got to take care of the basketball.
Yeah.
yeah, maybe they turned the ball over more than you did, but those 13 or 14 possessions you give away, that means that was 13 or 14 less times that you had to score.
Yeah.
And in the 2-point game, if you save 4 or 5 of those possessions and you score twice, it's 2-2 going back to Oklahoma City for Game 5.
Different ball game, no question. Is it interesting to you how, obviously the Oklahoma City approach was we're going to foul you as long as we're up 3 and you need a 3, we're going to foul you. They did that 2 straight times, and it was very effective. It takes a little life out of the game, but I don't know that you can argue with a team using that as strategy as long as it's legal, correct?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is, do everything you can, within the legal boundaries to win a basketball game. And that's what they did. And I understand that it can take the flow out of the game, but, for the guys in Oklahoma City, they're trying to get to an NBA championship for the first time in a long time, especially with Seattle. And, if the rules say that we can play this way, why not do it?
Yeah, I can't argue with any of that. Thanks as always for the analysis. We appreciate you. We'll be in touch as this thing plays out, and maybe even, like I said, still try to talk to you even if the Wolves are not able to make the big comeback to talk finals and other things as well. Thanks as always, Double T.
All right, anytime, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Much appreciated. Trent Tucker taking us to the top of the hour. A lot of hockey conversation coming up in the 5 o'clock hour of the broadcast, much to the delight of KFAN, who's been. Let's be honest. He's been pouting a lot lately. He's felt very unloved.
More than normal.
He has felt very, downright hostile from time to time, I would say. Maybe this will create, do they call it a rapprochement? I think that's the French word for it. Maybe this will bridge the tense gap between this program, or at least the host of this program, and Falness, who's actively campaigning for me to be stripped of my hockey ambassadorship, which hurts me. It hurts. I'm not going to lie. Maybe I deserve it, but it kind of hurts. We hope that our conversation with Luigi might help. You know what I'm saying?
As our last guest, Trent Tucker, would say, only time will tell, Davey.
Top 5?
Wolves, Twins, and a banner being hung at the X that doesn't involve the team of 18,000.
Wow.
Hi, I'm Bob Pittman, Chairman and CEO of iHeartMedia. On this week's episode of Math and Magic, I'm sitting down with the one and only Bobby Bones. We're exploring the power of audio.
Yeah, I don't fit into one specific hole. I think that is what endeared me to listeners. That's why I'm here now, because I talk to people that grew up like me, have sensibilities like me, and have loyalties like me.
Listen to Math and Magic, stories from the frontiers of marketing on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast.